going to dive into an exciting topic: 5 budgeting tips for early retirement success. So if you're dreaming of retiring or just want to be financially free sooner, these tips will set you on the right path. But before I get into that, I do want to talk a little bit about the channel itself and just tell you a little bit about me. Again, my name is Salvador. I retired at 51. And, my goal and my mission, my personal mission statement is to uplift the human condition in any way that I can. And the way that I do it is providing, down to earth, easy, pragmatic, easy to understand, retirement information. I realize and do recognize that I was incredibly fortunate to be able to retire, but I also have realized that, there are a lot of people that, just haven't had access to the information necessary in order to get themselves to that place. And as I go around YouTube and look at early retirement channels and, people that have actually retired early, I don't see a lot of people that look like me, which leads me to believe that there's a need for the information to be out there. So I use this as an opportunity just to provide good information. I don't try to sell you anything. I have no shtick. I just give you information and help you learn from me telling my story. So on that note, let's get into it. Now, did you know that nearly half of retirees believe they're going to outlive their retirement savings? That's a trip. And the concern is, really prevalent over people that are over 50 years old. So, and it's funny because that's the way I feel. And, I feel that my retirements and my investments and everything else may not last through my retirement. And so I really needed to get my head around what strategies can I do so I don't live this stressed out early retirement life, because, nobody wants that either. And so, when you look at the thing that it told me is that the above statistic really highlights the importance of careful financial planning, and the need for strategies to ensure long-term financial stability. And so I went and took a look at and really talked to my financial person about some of the, common challenges. And some of those common challenges are, insufficient savings, people not saving enough for retirement. Healthcare costs go up every year. And if you don't plan for those, it's one of those creepers. It could creep up and get you. Inflation. It's funny, most of my life, inflation was really this thing that was talked about, but really wasn't an issue. But as we saw in the last few years, with inflation getting up as high as about 8%, that could easily derail, our standard of living over time and derail our retirement. One of the things that I'm very tied into, and I spend a lot of time looking at and paying attention to, is the uncertainty around Social Security. There's a lot of talk. There was a report that came out not long ago that said that Social Security, if nothing's done, is going to be insolvent by 2034. And so, that's only 10 years from now. And so, and there are a lot of people who rely solely on Social Security. In fact, I'll tell you a little story. This morning, my wife and I went to the food pantry, as we do, to give food to the underprivileged. And, there's pantries that are set up around town with the express purpose of helping people that are in need. And so this morning we took some food, we took some water because it's hotter than heck out here right now. And we took some just household goods, some cleaning products. So if people want to clean, if, we got some clothes, some gently used clothes that we, put there just to help people out, because people really need a hand. And down the way, about a block away, I saw this gentleman, looked like an elderly gentleman, who was standing, and I can tell that this gentleman was looking at the pantry, waiting for us to leave, because, quite frankly, he might have been embarrassed that we were there. And so, and that he needs those services. And so as we drove by, the one thing my wife said is, that might be an individual who was on Social Security, and Social Security just isn't enough. They say that Social Security isn't designed to carry a person's full lifestyle. And so if there are changes to Social Security, then what you could find is that perhaps you can have a place to live, but you can't afford to eat. And those are the people that use some of these pantries and so on. And so that was, that was one of the thoughts that went through our mind. And, it got me thinking again about some of the, what's going to happen with Social Security. So if Social Security is a big part of your plan, then just make sure you pay attention to that, because I know that if it's on your mind like it's on mine, then it's something that's going to have an impact. There's debt, entering retirement with a significant debt, such as mortgages, credit cards, and medical bills, that could be a major, major burden. And, dealing with this debt on a fixed income, could be tough. One of the things that, one story about me, and I don't think I've shared this on the channel, is that back in about 2011, I had a bunch of credit card debt, and I just didn't think I was gonna, it was one of those situations where I was in a hole and I felt like I was going to sink and fall all the way through. And I started to think about, how am I going to deal with this? And so what I did was I just started to make small payments on that debt. And I started to say, whenever I got extra money, whenever I got a bonus from work, or whenever I got an increase, or whenever I got a tax refund, I would just put some money against it and do that, because I knew that at that point, I wasn't talking about retiring. I was just talking about living a day-to-day life. And so if it was like that for me then think of how that could be for you now. Your longevity risk. People are concerned about outliving your savings. Life expectancies are continuing to go up. And look, I think it's great that modern medicine is doing what it's doing. But the fact of the matter is people are living longer. And so people were thinking that, well, I'm going to retire and have retirement savings until I'm 85. But then what happens if you make it to 95? And my wife and I, we both set our plans up so we make it to 100. So if we live to 102, we might be in trouble. But I think at 102, I probably won't care. And then, market volatility. And, when you start looking at the markets going up and down, there's a term called, the sequence of returns. And it deals with the idea that having to take money out, early in your retirement in a down market has a compounding impact on the viability of your long-term plan, because then when it grows back, it's going to, a lower percentage of what you have is going to be there to grow. And so, and again, those are things that not only do I think about, but so do the 50% of people over 50 and the 48% of retirees. So, these are things that sit out there in the world that we think about. And, the lack of financial planning. Many retirees have not engaged in comprehensive financial planning. This leads to poor investment choices, inadequate insurance coverages, and inefficient withdrawal strategies from your retirement accounts. And I want to use this as a plug. I think it's critically important to have a conversation with a financial professional. If you go around YouTube, there's plenty of them there. And I'm not a financial professional. I never played one on TV, and I'm not going to play one on YouTube, but there's a host of them out there, and there are tools out there that can help you get there. And we'll talk a little bit about some of those later, but it's critical that you talk to a financial professional. And it's funny because when I think about a financial professional, I think about, if I have a problem, if the shingles are falling off my roof, who am I going to call? I'm going to call a roofer. If, I find that there's a leak in my plumbing, who do I call? I call a plumber. And then if there's a big bad ghost in the neighborhood, who do I call? I call the Ghostbusters. But, so for your financial issues, why would your financial stuff be any different? And look, it's not only for financial issues, but it's really for planning. And I think that, if you go across YouTube, there's a lot of different opinions, and, everybody has one, and there's competing opinions between a fee-based advisor or an hourly advisor or those types of things. And what you really want to do is just find a fiduciary, somebody who's going to, they make money when you make money, and they're going to look for your best interests. I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I think that, the goal of my channel is not to tell you what to do. My goal is to help you find peace of mind. And so on the financial advisor or the financial professional front, the only thing I'm going to say to you is go with the arrangement that brings you the most peace, because at the end of the day, the only thing you should be thinking about in retirement is peace of mind. If you have peace of mind, if you're paying 1% a year, then you're paying 1% a year. If you're paying X amount an hour, then pay X amount an hour. The question is, do you feel good about it? And as they say, if you like it, I love it. So, but I think it becomes critical for you to seek out a financial professional to help you make sure that you ask some of these questions, because there's things that creep up in retirement. Inflation creeps up, taxes creep up, changes in Social Security creep up. There's all these things that creep up. And, you know, of these eight concerns that I mentioned now, there's a whole host of other ones that I just couldn't think of that a financial advisor would help you get through and really help you in your unique circumstance, identify the ones that are pertinent to you and help you get through those. So talk to a financial professional, and that's my advice on that. So let's move on to the 5 tips that I have. And these are things that I use to help me, have the best retirement that I can have. Tip number one, create a detailed budget. Start by tracking your income and expenses. Use budgeting tools and apps if you need to. This helps you identify areas where you can cut back. A good friend of mine, and I say a good friend of mine, but he's really a colleague. There's a guy named Joe Kuhn, Joe, last name is Kuhn, and it's Joe Kuhn Loves Retirement, and he uses a tool. And again, this is not a commercial. I'm just telling you this because my goal is to give good information, and this is good information for you. He uses a tool called New Retirement. And New Retirement is a software. And again, go to his channel because he could tell you all about it. But, a lot of people will use spreadsheets and things like that. But this will help you calculate, taxes and all of these different things that can impact your retirement picture. But you want to make sure that you want to create a detailed budget because you want to know what you could spend. And again, it all goes back to peace of mind. And so if you know that you're going to spend $200 a month on groceries and you spend $150, guess what? Now you're not worrying about it, but you know where all your money's going. And once you set up your budget, then you have things go out with automatic payments, and then you don't have to worry about it because you know what's coming in, you know what's going out, and so on. But what you don't want to do is get caught without understanding, where the money is. And don't look at it as a list of restrictions, because it's not. It's really the number one tool to get you to financial freedom, because you'll know where everything is going. I know that on about a monthly basis, I just go through and I take a look at everything I'm spending. What am I spending on streaming services? If you're like me, your cell phone bill seems to go up every month and you never understand why. And so I go and I make the phone calls and try to understand or see what discounts I can get and so on. And I do just so this stuff doesn't get out ahead of me, because everything seems like it goes up. I don't know why. I do a scrub and I get there because I know what I budget, and I adjust my budget as appropriate. And I think you should do the same. Tip number two, prioritize your savings. One of the best pieces of advice my mother gave me when I was a kid was she always said, pay yourself first. Take any part of what you make and use that to pay yourself, to save your money, and automate that. So have it come directly out of your check into your savings account or whatever the case is. Because when you start to build those habits go. And what's interesting is you can't miss what you don't have. And it's one thing if you get $100 a week and then you go out and you spend $100 partying like a rock star. But if you get $80 a week, then you model your life around the fact that I get $80 a week. And so now that $20 a week, you forget about it. Next thing you know, you got $20 a week up to $1,000, and you can go and do something else with it. And so, automate those savings plans, but make sure you pay yourself first, because if you wait until, the right time, then you're not going to do it, because there's always going to be something out there, something or someone that's going to take, that's looking to take your money. Number 3, minimize your debt. When you think about, there's certain debts that they say are good debts, like, if you got to buy a car, a house, because it appreciates in value. But there's really no reason that if you can get out of credit card debt to be in credit card debt. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of viewpoints on, people saying live within your means. And I know that people get frustrated with that. But the reality is, if you're trying to retire, what you want to do is you want to have your debts as low as possible. Because if you have $100 to live and 20% interest on that $100, now you're paying $120 for $100 worth of value. And so you don't want, and what happened to me, I think I was mentioning earlier, and when I was in debt, is I was paying 21% interest on a credit card, paying a minimum payment, and every month the amount that I owed continued to go up. And again, that can completely derail your retirement. I mean, these are things like student loans and again, you may not be able to do it tomorrow, but folks, nothing good happens tomorrow. It's always a plan. It always takes time. We look at Instagram, we look at Facebook, we look at YouTube, and we say, wow, this Sabado guy retired at 51. But I don't think, I think it's easy to lose sight of all the pain and all the suffering and all the difficult times that I had to endure and all the sacrifices I had to make in order to get to this point. And so, it's no time to start like the present. So if getting to retirement, whether it's early retirement, retiring at normal age, or just having a peace of mind as you go into retirement, the key is the way you develop peace of mind is not having things that stress you out. I mean, it's that simple. And one of the things that can stress you out is debts. And if you're here, you're trying to figure out, how do I get to that place? And just like it snowballs and it gets high, once you start getting into the process of paying it, that becomes a snowball as well, because again, that becomes more of a lifestyle as opposed to just an activity, kind of like we were talking about with saving. Tip number 4, invest wisely. Put money to work by investing in stocks, bonds, and real estate. Diversify. I think it's important to diversify. There's a lot of people that look at, and it's interesting because there's a lot of people that look at the stock market and they say, I'm going to put my money in Nvidia. It's like, that's cool, but Nvidia is going to go up, Nvidia is going to go down. But when you put money in the stocks, and again, I'm not a professional, and I don't claim to be one. I don't purport to be one. I just try to pass on information in a way that I understand it the most. Is when you put money into a mutual fund is a group of stocks. And so a lot of times what you find is one goes down, the other one goes up, and it minimizes your losses. But when they all go up, you get what's called compounding interest. And the beauty of compounding interest is something that I can't express enough. Those of you that have 401ks, take a look at your 401. If you've had a 401k for the last year, take a look at where it is now compared to last year. There's no way you would have put that money on your own into a savings account. And guess what? If you did, you wouldn't have made that money because the markets are up 20%, 15% year over year. And so, put your money away. And it's easy to say invest in real estate. Well, folks, I live in California. Investing in real estate is difficult. So, but the idea is put your money away in places where you'll be able to take advantage of the returns when the market goes up, because putting money in the mattress isn't going to do any good. It's actually going to move you behind. And most bank accounts, they pay 1-2%. You can get into money market accounts that are paying 3-4%. But then you start going into, you look at the, and I wish I would have brought the statistic with me, but you look at the, like the NASDAQ, or you look at the S&P 500, or you look at any of the indexes, those are all up by double digits this year. And when you invest, and I could give you some ideas, and I can talk to my financial person, and give you some ideas, but you can get into, like the index funds that are invested, that are aligned with what's in with the indexes, the Nasdaq and the Dow and all of that. So that way, as that goes up, your money grows. But that's really how it grows over time. But again, talk to your financial professional, because they can help you with a strategy to help you get to one that works. And it's based on your risk profile. Some people are more comfortable. I've always believed that when you invest, it's always a 5-year window. So if you have the stomach to wait 5 years before you're going to need the money, then you're going to be in a better place than you are now, because usually you would have worked through all of the market cycles in that 5-year period. And if you have longer, great, but don't wait too long to do that, because that's one of the key ways to save money. And then once you retire, it's interesting because they have the 4% rule. And they say if you go 60-40 bonds, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, then you should be able, depending on what your expenses are, you might be able to live off of the interest. So I know a lot of us look at people that win the lottery. We look at athletes and say, how are they so broke? They made all this money. They could just live off of the interest. Well, you might be in a situation to do that too. So again, talk to the financial professionals. And I'll tell you what's interesting. Another side note, and I digress, so I apologize. I apologize in advance. You can admonish me in the comments. Is that, people look at athletes, and, 80% of professional athletes go broke within 4 years of leaving professional sports. And so the reality is that they're not looking at this channel. So I'll tell you that by watching my channel, you are already getting a leg up, because you're getting information that many of them may not have had or may not be following. So again, there's some secret sauce behind this that can help you get to where you need to be. It doesn't happen overnight. Never would tell you that anything that's good is going to happen overnight, but over time you'll be looking back saying, that Sabado gave me some good information. I knew some of the right questions to ask, and I asked some of the right questions. And then the last tip is, invest wisely. Live below your means. There's some people who are in a circumstance where they can't cut anything, because all they're doing is they're eating soup and they're paying for their apartment, and that's all they can do. And I get it. And this is not geared towards them. And I don't think people that are there are necessarily the ones that are you all. Because when you're looking at surviving, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're trying to fulfill your basic needs, then you're not trying to get to self-actualization. You're trying to survive. But if you're at a place where you're looking at trying to retire, and you're kind of in that tipping point area, trying to get from A to Z, then one of the things that you can do is try, frugality in your life. Cut out unnecessary expenses. Think about, one of the things that I did is I think about things that I have, and I try to understand, is this for me or is it for other people? It's like I was watching a video today, and a guy was talking. I think it was Charles Barkley. And he said, people tell you, oh, you got this nice car, put some rims on it. He says, I can't even see the rims because I'm inside the car. The only reason I get nice rims is so you can see it. Don't worry about what other people think. Worry about what works for you and what it is that you need. I had a really nice car. I think I mentioned before, I had a nice Audi at one point, and I realized that it cost me too much to maintain, so I got rid of that Audi. One of my neighbors says, hey, you're not going to be the guy in the neighborhood with the nice car anymore. And I said, well, I'm not trying to be the nice guy in a nice car. Now he's telling me, man, I wish I could retire like you did. So, but try to exercise some frugality. Try not to be excessive. It's okay to get stuff that's necessary and things that you want. And I suggest that you do. And this is what my wife and I do, is we take a look around and say, do we really need that? We buy things, and if they bring value to us and they bring us joy and they spark joy, then by all means, we go out and do it. But what you start to realize is that it's not really about sparking joy a lot of the times. Or as Susie Orman says, people, then money, then things. And, the things aren't that important, because the things, they kind of come and go. But remember, the less that you spend, the more you can invest and put away in retirement. And the other thing I'm not And I want to say this, full disclosure, I am not the don't eat avocado toast and don't drink Starbucks and you'll be able to retire stuff. I'll leave that to the people that actually believe that, because I think there's a certain amount of joy in drinking a certain type of coffee. That'd be like somebody saying, Sabado, don't go play golf. Golf brings me joy. So if I don't do that, then I'm going to be miserable. Nobody needs to be miserable. So I'm not going to say that, but, and I just challenge us to take a look at, are there things that we can cut out? And I tell you what, we all have them.